Our speaker today is the newly appointed Director of the Office on African Affairs, Mamadou Samba. I could go on about his background, but one thing I want to point out for those who were here last month at our networking event, Dr. Mena Demeshi did a great shout out for you. She said that you were instrumental in giving grant, helping the office achieve independent grant authority. That is amazing for any office to have. And so, on that note, I actually will invite you up at this point to come and talk about your plans for the office.
Thank you very much. I am Mamadou Samba, and thank you everyone for coming today. I'm very honored to be invited today. Thank you to the Smithsonian for putting this event together. And please spend $75. Spend $175. I am Mamadou Samba. I'm from Senegal, and I did see a couple of my compadres from Senegal, which confirms that Senegal is the best African country. So we're not going to argue about that. But thank you, I'm very honored. So on behalf of my entire staff, some couldn't make it, and on behalf of Mayor Bowles, I'd like to thank you for this invitation. I'm not here just for my own person, but on behalf of the city. So let me just start by telling a little bit about myself, and then I'll talk more about what we plan to do going forward. So I'm from Senegal, and I started working in this Office on African Affairs in 2011. I came into the district through a program called Capital City Fellows Program, and I recommend all of you guys to look it up and apply. It's a very good program where you are recruited to come in, and the city gives you 2 years to rotate in all agencies that you want. Every 6 months you go to one agency, and you work on a project for 6 months, and then you move on to the next agency. And the goal is for them to keep you here and get hired. So my first job was in this office that I'm now the director. I started working in 2011 as a fellow, and I worked on a lot of projects there. The website that you guys see when you log into it, it's a website that I designed. Most of the contents there, I designed. The newsletter that most of you guys get, I was instrumental in revamping the website. And most of the research there, the first research on African Americans in DC, I did the research on that. And I sort of compiled a lot of statistics on African Americans, which was the very first. So I moved on to different agencies, and eventually I received the honor of being appointed by Mayor Bowles to come back and be the director, which I found to be a full circle as far as career is concerned. So I'm inviting everyone to come be part of the office. My message so far has been that, yes, I can walk on water, but I cannot do this job by myself. It requires collaboration. And my message here is, for a long time, there's been lots of isolated efforts. Nigerians are working here on their own. Ghanaians are working over there on their own. I want to bring everybody together. This is what the Asian community does. This is what the Latino community does. But when it comes to our community, everybody's competing with everybody else. And my goal is not to compete. I do that very well. I've done that very well in the past. And it's true. It's true. But at some point, we have to be able to come together. There's 1.6 million African Americans in the United States. The metropolitan area is the second largest metropolitan area with the highest number of African Americans. There's about 161,000 in the DMV. The District of Columbia has about 18,000. Well, the census argues is 16,000. But we know that African immigrants are generally undercounted. So, you know, we sort of embellish a little bit, and we estimate that there's about 18,000 African immigrants. The first metropolitan area is New York. There's about many more than here. But this is particularly important because the District of Columbia is the only jurisdiction that has a mayor's office on African affairs. So a lot of places are looking to us, to what we do, to see what we do, to take best practices, to apply in those areas. So the mayor's office on African affairs is essentially here to serve as a liaison between the African community and the mayor's office and all district agencies. Why do we need an office like that? Well, we know back in the 90s, late 90s is when most of the immigration laws were were a little more flexible. So a lot of African immigrants had the opportunity to come to the United States through diversity, a lot of visa, through sponsorship, those kind of programs that allow a lot of us to be able to come here. So when we come here, we are faced with a multitude of challenges: language barriers, stereotype and stigma, um, cultural issues, employment issues, unemployment issues, brain waste, brain drain, and so on and so on. So the past couple of years, we started to advocate for more resources because, yes, you want to serve the African community, but you have to have the resources. So yes, Mena and I and others got together and put together a plan to advocate for resources. And this is an opportunity for all of us because every time I go somewhere, people tell me, oh, we need an African Community Center. But I cannot do this on my own. You have to understand how the legislative process works. You have to advocate your government. You have to lobby your government. We may be Africans, but we live here, we pay taxes, our kids go to school here, we pay our mortgages here, so they owe us something in return, right? They owe us something when it comes to education, when it comes to public safety. But in order for us to make that happen, we have to educate policymakers on what are the challenges that we face. So 2 years ago when I wrote that policy paper, I actually compiled issues that we face. For example, I speak a lot on brainwash. The fact that there are a lot of doctors, people who are doctors in Africa, but when they come here, they're not doctors here because their degrees are not being recognized, right? So they end up saying, okay, well, I'll go back to school eventually, but until then, let me go get a job as a cab driver or let me go work in hotels, right? And they end up being stuck at that job because if you're a doctor, you can make $150,000, right? Which means you're supposed to pay more money in taxes. Perhaps you can open a small business, hire 2 to 3 people there. But if you're working as a cab driver, you can't do that, right? So governments are losing revenues in terms of tax. So what we're saying is, hey, put together policies or solutions to make sure that when someone comes here as a doctor, yes, they may not be doctors right away, but they can be employed in the healthcare industry, right? So that people like us can benefit from the experience while they get enough living for that. But if you're not doing that, they end up relying on your support, on your funding. Eventually, they get stuck in that, and that's a problem for government, right? So what I want to do with this office is, for one, I plan to bring together the community to do more of these kind of events, right? To collaborate with the Smithsonian, for example, to tell our story in a positive manner, because no one has been telling our stories, to be honest with you. So it's about time that we tell our own stories. During the Ebola crisis, there was a lot of African cab drivers who complained that people don't want to get in their cabs because they thought they have Ebola, which brings the issue about stereotype and stigma. We have to address those kind of things. So policy is a big thing for me, policy and collaboration. I tend to go more towards the collaborative approach to problem solving rather than a competitive approach to problem solving. And this has been a problem in the African community. You never see Ethiopians go mingle with the Ghanaian community unless it's this type of events. So we have to be able to, no, I'm serious. We have to be able to work together when it comes to a lot of issues. Immigration is a problem in all communities, not just the Ethiopian community. Unemployment is a problem with all communities, not just the Senegalese community. So there has to be a concerted effort to work together and put together policies, recommendations on how to address these problems. So the past few weeks, I'm into my 7th week. What I've been doing a lot with the office is just changing the office. Because I mean, make it more, to be honest, no offense, but I've met with more non-Africans than Africans in my first week, up to now. Because I want to understand the message that that office is not just for Africans. I'm here on behalf of the city. Eventually, my job is to serve all district presidents, not just Africans. But because that office is particularly tailored for African immigrants, yes, I'm going to focus on them. But that does not mean that I'm not going to work with the Asian community. Or I'm not going to work with the Mexican community, because we have the same issues, the same problem. So I'm inviting you guys to come be part of the office. And the African community, we have to get rid of, stigma and stereotype is a problem in our community. We don't like to talk about certain things. We think that you only go to the hospital when you get ready to die, and that's not an issue. That's it. We have to be able to talk about, cancer, HIV/AIDS. We have to be able to talk about diabetes, right? But when I was telling a friend that You know, you take an African person who has cancer, they will never go to an African doctor because they think that doctor knows someone they know. So they rather go to a Chinese doctor or someone who doesn't know it. No, I mean, I'm serious. I've been living in the community long enough. Or this is tax season, right? How many Senegalese do you know will go to another Senegalese CPA? They will never do that. Because they don't want that person to know how much money they make. But we don't know that that's what capacity building comes from. You have to support your own community. Malcolm X talked about black nationalism, spending money in your own neighborhood, right? That's what we have to do. We have to spend money in our own neighborhood. We have to come spend money in the Smithsonian because they tell our story in a positive way. But we like to go to another community, right? When you go to the Chinese community, they tell you something is $19.99. You give them $20. But when you go to the African community, they say $19.99. You think it's too much. I'm serious. So these are the issues that I'm working to. These are the issues that I'm working to. You guys think I'm a community. In my other life, I used to be a comedian. So we have that one issue, right? So health is another issue. So we have lots of programs in the office. So the office is sort of a setup in a very nice way. We have buckets, what we call buckets. These are the umbrella programs. Multicultural awareness, capacity building for entrepreneurs and nonprofit organizations, youth development program for African youth and such. We have a program aimed at, we have our grant. Let me talk a little bit about that. So 2 years ago, we were able to secure $100,000 in the grant, which we give to nonprofit organizations to help us in particular areas. And those areas have to meet the mayor's priority, right? Health, education, and such. So those are opportunities for you guys, for all of us, to be able to come to the office, submit a proposal, and we'll take a look at it if it meets our objective. And these grants have been very helpful for African nonprofit because this is something they've been advocating for a long time. And we were finally able to secure that. I don't want to go too long on this. I'm sure there'll be questions more about what the office plans to do. So I talked a little bit about the health, the business components, the capacity building. Yesterday we had a workshop in collaboration with USAID and the Western Union. You guys know they have the African Diaspora Marketplace where they fund entrepreneurs to invest in Africa, matching grants. So I brought them in. They came to my office when I first came. They told us all the good things they do. My point was, don't tell me, show me. Right? If this is important, come and teach us how to do it. So they came and did a workshop yesterday, and we plan to do more of this. And I'm hoping that I'll see you guys a little bit more. So finally, when Aisha came to my office, and Umar, they told me, you got to get ready. These guys will ask you some tough questions, right, about my background. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about myself. So I came to the U.S. when I was 18, 19. My father worked at the Senegalese embassy. So I came to D.C. and eventually he went back home and I stayed here with my family. So I'm not here by accident. This is something that I've been after for a really long time. And it so happened that with my background, it's a natural fit that I am today, that I am where I wanted to be, or where I think I should have been. So when my father went back to Senegal, I was staying here with my sisters. We moved to Atlanta. And eventually, I finished high school, spent a lot of time playing soccer, going to nightclubs. So I had an opportunity to go to University of South Carolina to play soccer. I went to South Carolina. Within a couple of weeks, I was told that the scholarship that I was supposed to get, I was not going to get, which was very disappointing because by that time I already moved, did everything I had to do. So I faced a choice. I had to either stay or I had to leave, go back home. So I decided to stay in South Carolina, which was those 4 years, I tell the story sometime, were the hardest 4 years of my life, but yet were the best 4 years of my life. Because back home, my parents gave us everything we needed. We had a 2-story house, cars. We never missed anything. I never envied my friends. I went to the University of South Carolina, didn't get a scholarship. I was left to fend on my own. I had to find money to pay for my own tuition, to pay for my own living. And it was a very tough time for me, those 4 years. I was working 2 to 3 jobs in college. I never had my books paid on time. I would start the semester without any books at all. By the time I got my books, it's after midterm, or I had to spend the rest of the semester catching up to my classmates. I went to bed many nights, I say many nights, on hungry, empty stomachs, or just with peanuts and water that I had to eat many times. I slept on a floor that was, this carpet was actually not soft, where I slept for many nights, for about 3 years of college, because things were so tough for me. My first year of college, I was earning $15 a week. $15. And the coach and the lady let me coach her daughter. Her name was Robin. I used to coach her on Wednesday soccer. She gave me $15. We went to very cheap stores, a friend and I. We lived on 95 cents bread and 50 cent cheeseburger for about 3 years of college. So today, I'm kind of embarrassed to walk out and pick up pennies when I see them. But I used to pick them up when I was in college, and I used to save them. Because there was a McDonald's on the corner that had a 15-cent cheeseburger on Wednesdays. And that was my buffet. So I took all that experience as I went along in life to my career, and I bring, as we go through this journey, you can come and bring your own experience that we can combine, put together workshops, programs that are tailored to your needs. So I don't want to take too much time. I know I have very little time, so thank you very much for listening, and I hope you can answer any questions.
Come again.